Hello, everyone. I am your host, Juwan the Don, and this is the Wrestling Matters podcast. Today, I have tons of stuff for you. We're going to keep it short and sweet and then try to get back to being more consistent. But today, we're going to go over some college wrestling and some commitments. And then we're also going to come over some wrestling intricacies from UFC 268 this weekend. But first of all, we're going to keep it with the Buckeyes and Ohio State. I actually got a chance to go out to the Ohio State versus North Carolina duel on Sunday in Columbus, and that was awesome. Got to see the national champ from North Carolina, OConnor, and I also got to see the fiery young Buckeyes and see some studs and All-Americans from there as well. So, with no further ado, we're going to jump right into it, and we're going to start off with the Ohio State-North Carolina duel. And first there, they started at 165, and that was Carson Karchula getting it kicked off for the Buckeyes with a major decision win over Sonny Santiago. Karchula looked great. The field is really tough at 165, but look for him to break through an All-American and even be a threat to place higher and win it. He's tough. Karchula, depending on how healthy he is with his knee, Karchula is going to compete with anyone for the top spot. So Carson Karchula looked awesome. It was good to see him out there for Ohio State. At 174 for Ohio State, they rolled out the All-American Ethan Smith, who was 5th last year. He comes in ranked 6th this year, up a weight at 174. Spadafora, he wrestled Spadafora from North Carolina. He was in pretty much control of the whole match. Spadafora's tough, but Smith took care of business there at 174. Moving up to 184, Rocky Jordan, another Jordan legacy wrestler, did his thing and got a W. He had a pretty gritty opponent, but he was able to tough it out, and he's very calculated in his attacks and when he goes, and he has good shot defense. And I thought Rocky Jordan looked sharp out there for the Buckeyes. Moving along to 197, you have Gavin Hoffman getting on track and getting a win over Chade from North Carolina. That's important for Hoffman because he came in as a top recruit in that 195, 197 range, and he hasn't fully hit his stride yet, but I think this is the right way and the right time for him to make something happen if he's going to. I think his time's now if he's going to go. So it was good to see Hoffman up close. He looked good. He's aggressive. And he had his head up in those scrambles, and he looks better. So excited for Hoffman. Moving along to heavyweight, All-American from Ohio State, Orndorff. I believe that's Tate Orndorff. And he held it down. I believe it was a 2-0 or 4-0 match. Nice and controlling win over Whitman from North Carolina, and it's a tough road ahead for Orndorff, but he's an All-American, so he's proven he's an All-American in one of the deepest years ever at heavyweight. So he's tough, and he'll be right there in the mix to All-American again and try to climb that ladder. So I thought Orndorff looked well. He's pretty solid. 125, we got a good look at Malik Heinzelman, the 125-pounder for the Buckeyes. He wrestled well. He wrestled against true freshman Spencer Moore from North Carolina. And Spencer Moore is good. He's fiery. He's had some decent wins already this year. And he has to be good to even make that lineup at North Carolina. So Spencer Moore was tough, but Heinzelman looked good out there. He ended up coming out on top. I thought Heinzelman looked good. I think he has a chance to jump strides against this season. And I think Heinzelman has a decent shot at being an All-American. At 133, this is Jamie Hernandez from North Carolina coming out on top over Dylan Kuntz from Ohio State. And I believe this was Carolina's first win of the match was here at 133. Now, I think the projected starter for Ohio State is Andre Gonzalez. I don't know if he's going to redshirt possibly. But he won the wrestle-off, and he actually won the freshman-sophomore division this weekend at the Michigan State Open. But he didn't wrestle varsity in this duel. They wrestled Coons. Coons looked tough, but Jamie Hernandez came out on top, and Hernandez looked good for sure. At 141, we had a nice, even, back and forth match. There could have been some more action, but it was a very tactical match between Keyshawn Clark of North Carolina and Jordan Decatur from Ohio State. Keyshawn Clark ended up coming through with an overtime takedown for the win and to put the second consecutive match on the board for North Carolina. All right, moving along to 149, we got to see Sammy Sasso, obviously a crowd favorite. We saw after all the kids very interested in taking pictures with him, and he seems to be a star there in Columbus. We actually got to catch up with him shortly after the match, and that was cool to get words with Sasso, and he looked good. He was the number one ranked 149-pounder this year. Last year he was the NCAA runner-up at 149. He actually lost to North Carolina in NCAA finals, but he lost to Austin O'Connor, who's bumping up to 157 this year. So no O'Connor versus Sasso this weekend, but Sasso's wrestling. He ended up wrestling Zach Sherman from North Carolina, who's currently ranked 5th and was an All-American last year. So Zach Sherman's game. Sasso ended up winning this match, but he gave up 2 points in the third period. One on a legal cutback, drag back from the top position where you cut out the guy's ankles, back trip him, a legal move, and then he got called for a locked hands as well. So he ended up coming out on top. He looked pretty dominant besides those two situations where he got a little sloppy on top. But for that being the first match of the year against the top 5 guy, I think Sasso's in control to win an NCAA title this year, as long as he stays healthy. And but Sherman's game as well. Sherman's tough. He's All-American. He'll be looking to All-American again. And those Tar Heels are wrestling over there. And then moving up to 157, North Carolina rolls out Austin O'Connor, and we don't see Patty Gallagher for Ohio State, and that could bring up the question, do they redshirt Patty Gallagher and Andre Gonzalez for next year, just in case, and then maybe you see Gonzalez at 25, and then, I don't know. It's too early to tell because they could wrestle them in the next duel for all we know, so. No Patty Gallagher at 157. I believe it was Jace Hubbard that was in, and he looked good. Of note, he went out there and got the first takedown. He went out there and wrestled the returning national champion, went out there and got his first takedown. Now, things got a little sloppy and he ended up getting stuck. O'Connor ended up pinning him and picking up 6 points for North Carolina. And then Ohio State ended up winning the duel 23-12. Very competitive North Carolina team. Ohio State potentially underrated in these rankings at 8 through 10. I'm seeing in the national rankings. Depending on who all they pull and who wrestles and how well they do, I think they could potentially be fighting for a low podium spot, maybe 4th place, if this team maxes out their potential. But that's just the present. The exciting news for the Buckeyes is the future. And of note, the number 1 overall recruit in the class of 2022, Jesse Mendez from Crown Point, Indiana. Junior world teamer, cadet world teamer, 3-time state champ, going for his 4th in Indiana. He made his decision last week, and he's going to commit to wrestle at the Ohio State University for the Buckeyes. He's projected to wrestle 141, and it's very exciting for Ohio State and the Buckeyes because Jesse Mendez is a polarizing athlete and recruit. And along with that brings the question is this the best recruiting class on paper before going to college? Now, we can't predict exactly what all these guys will do, but this Ohio State class of 22 recruiting class has the number 1, 2, and 3 overall athletes in their grade committing to Ohio State, and that's Jesse Mendez, that's Nick Bouzakis, and that's Nick Feldman, heavyweight. So Bouzakis projects as a 133 and maybe a 141. Mendez projects as a 41, maybe a 49. So this is exciting news for the Buckeyes. Potentially some holes could be filled in the lineup with a national title to All-American threats all throughout. So they can get back to competing for first place and have an opportunity to be taking home a team trophy every year again, like they did for a long streak of time there. Bouzakis, Feldman recently beat Christian Carroll at who's number one. He's a stud. He trains at M2 with David Taylor. Feldman's going to be really good right away at heavyweight. And a lot of these guys, these dominant heavyweights right now, are going to be on their way out as Feldman comes in, and expect him to be competing for some national titles by his sophomore or junior year, I would say. Could be too big expectations, but I would see that. And I think Bouzakis is a threat to win as soon as he comes in. And I think Mendez could be as well. And I think Bouzakis is going to be an immediate impact. And I think he'll probably go 33 next year right away. I don't think there'll be a discussion. I could be wrong, but from what I've seen with my own eyes as a recruit and seeing what Ohio State has, I think that Bouzakis goes 33 right away for the Buckeyes. All right. Also of note, Seth Schumacher, 195-pounder. He's committed there too. He's top 5 at 195. He's been number 1 before. Seth Schumacher's tough, and he's going to be a game 97-pounder in college. So another good recruit. You also have Gavin Brown. So Ohio State's loaded for the future. It was an honor to go out there and see their duel between North Carolina, and I'm excited what the future has in store for them. All right, in further news, this weekend at UFC 268, Kamaru Usman, the 170-pound champion, welterweight of the UFC, who is 15-0 in the organization and on a 19-fight win streak, who's also of note a Division II national champion from the University of Nebraska-Kearney, defended his belt this weekend successfully against Colby Covington. Usman landed 1 of 1 on takedowns, and he had 2 knockdowns to win the fight. He pretty much dominated. Covington fought well, but Usman is the clear champ here. A noted mistake here, although on his official record, it says Colby Covington, the former Division I All-American wrestler from Oregon State, it says he was 0 for 11 on takedown attempts. I'm here to tell you that's not true. Watched it with my own eyes, can't unsee it. Colby Covington landed 1 takedown. He didn't have a lot of control. He didn't land much damage, but he had a nice little duck under. Came in straight in on the shot and poked out, hit a duck under, came behind, had the body lock, put him up on the fence, threw a couple punches. So he definitely had a takedown. There's no debate there. Even Daniel Cormier said it. So take me or DC's word for it. That's up to you. It was an awesome fight. Their second time fighting. I don't think we need to see it again. It could happen again just because they could be the 2 best in the world, clearly. But Colby Covington almost looked a step back this weekend. My humble opinion. Okay, also of note, in another title fight there, the women's, I believe, strawweight title fight between Rose Namajunas defending her belt against Weili Zhang. And this was a strange fight to break down because it was a split decision, and one of the judges had Weili Zhang winning, and 2 of them had Rose Namajunas winning. Now, it's weird because Weili Zhang was 5 of 11 on takedowns, and Rose Namajunas was 2 of 2 on takedowns. Weili Zhang landed more punches. She landed more strikes. I think Rose might have had a slight edge in significant strikes. But either way, this is a really razor thin fight. The timing of Rose's takedowns is the deciding factor in this fight. Her 2 takedowns was in the 4th and in the 5th round, and she got a lot of control time. She kept Weili Zhang on the mat once she took her down. So Zhang fought well, and I thought it almost seemed like she was the better wrestler, but she didn't use her wrestling correctly, and Rose was more timely with her takedowns and a lot more controlling, and she was able to defend her belt and retain it due to that. And although we do cover wrestling here, it's important to know in MMA that wrestling does matter. And that's it for UFC 268. That's it for the Ohio State North Carolina duel, and that's it for this Buckeyes 2022 recruiting class. And that's all for this episode. Thank you. I'm your host, Juwan the Don, and this is the Wrestling Matters Podcast.